Welcome back to another weekly analysis video. This analysis is for the week of October 12th, 2025. As always, we'll start off with a review of last week's price action and then move into the analysis for next week. So this is interesting. We did reach our next objective of 25,272. And I was looking for it to reach for 25,515, but it fell just short of that into the stop run area relative to that particular level, which is a range of 81 points above this level and 81 points below this level. That's the stop run area relative to the 25,515 area. And we had this very large move to the downside. I want you to recall the previous analysis, or a couple of analysis videos I've done, where I've stated that we're in a premium and retracements can be seen relative to the bullish trend. Okay, I'm not convinced yet that this is a top. Okay, we're going to get into the analysis for next week after I go in, after the lower time frames for the weekly review, but I'm just stating this, that I'm not convinced yet that this is a top. I need more information. So, to recap, we did reach our weekly objective, 25,272, and we were looking to see if we could get up to 25,515. So with that being said, let's move on to the hourly chart for the weekly review. Alright, moving into the hourly chart now. We have the open here, 1800, Sunday, October 5th. I want to draw your attention into here. Notice how this stop run area relative to this level was hit. It came in that area and then rejected away from that area. Okay. A lot of times with these stop run levels, whether they're lower parameters or higher parameters, it doesn't matter because it's all fractal. A lot of times they'll fall short of the level that the stop run is keying off of. It'll come into that stop run area and then go away from that, and then eventually at a later time come back to it. This happens all the time in price action. So it came up into here and rejected away from there. Again, our next objective was hit of 25,272. We were down in here, if you recall, and I had said that I would prefer to see price stay in here and repel away from that higher, and it did just that. However, I did not think it would actually do that on the open. I thought it would come back into here first. That's what I said in the last analysis that I did. Okay, it did not come back in here first. It actually just traded higher on the open and went into our next objective, which is fine. That's okay. As it relates to this large move to the downside, again, I want to emphasize that I am not convinced that this is a top yet. And I'll get into the reasons why I'm not convinced as we go into the analysis for next week, but I'm just stating that I'm not convinced yet. Everybody and their dog on social media and on different forums and things of that nature are saying, oh, the top's in Nasdaq now and the indexes. I'd be cautious. Anyhow, let's move on into the 15-minute chart. Alright, now moving into the 15-minute chart, a more refined view and detailed view compared to that of the hourly chart. Again, the open here at Sunday, October 5th, 1800. Just a nice overall move to our next objective of 25,272 into the stop run area of the 25,515 level, with a large move to the downside here on Friday. So again, there's really not much more to discuss other than the fact that I just keep focusing on this large down move here. Now everybody and their dog is saying that the top is in. Nasdaq's finally put in the top, everybody. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that it's in yet, and there are certain things that need to happen for me in order to say, all right, I believe that a top is in place, and until those things happen, I will not say that a top is in place. So when I believe a top is in place, I'll be more than happy to go public with it. But for now, I do not believe it's so. So now we're going to get into the analysis for what I'm expecting next week and discuss what parameters price needs to follow in order to maintain its current bullish trend and into new all-time highs and into our objective of 26,244. Alright, we're back on our daily chart now, and we're going to move into the analysis for next week, the week of October 12th, 2025. So this week, I'm going to be waiting for a little bit more information to see what we do, because since we have moved aggressively to the downside, I do believe price will be targeting 24,057, and it could even run into the stop run area below 24,057. This is a stop run below 24,057. This is the stop run above 24,057. Notice how it has created a void in here. It's just a singular pass through with this candle in here. This is what ICT would refer to as the future creation of a gap or a void. Okay. Now, if it's going to move to the downside, it would need to remain below this area in here. Target this level and then see if it reaches for that. Now, once it does that, okay, we want to see how price behaves in this area. So we'll draw that out in here. We want to see how price behaves in this area in here, because that is going to determine whether or not we continue the bullish move higher and continue to make new all-time highs, or if we aggressively move through here, then we open up the door for it coming back into this area in here, which that's a pretty nice move from here into there. Okay, but I'm monitoring what happens in this area in here. So what I would like to see going into next week is a return back into this area in here, and then another move lower, another leg lower into here. Okay, so that's what I'm monitoring. That's what I'm watching for. And then I'm going to gauge to see how price behaves from here into this area in here, where this rectangle is. That's what I'm monitoring to see if price wants to continue moving higher, or if it wants to blow through this and move into here, and perhaps down into here. So I'm waiting for more information, but as of now, going into the week, I'm going to be looking for, in the short term, shorts. Okay, so moving lower initially, and then watching how it behaves in here to see if it wants to continue its current bullish trend. Alright, now moving into our hourly chart for our weekly analysis. Again, the initial objective for going into next week would be 24,057, and seeing how it behaves within this area in here. Okay, that would be the objective for next week. However, what would change that idea? What would say, you know what, it's not coming down in this area anymore? If it aggressively trades through here, comes back down, and then rallies higher, and that would be relative to the stop run area. So let's say it opens, it gaps up, comes back down, closes in that gap, and then rallies. That would negate this idea. Okay, but initially I'd like to see, since it's moved aggressively like this, and it's moved aggressively through here, I'd like to see it come back up into this area in here, make another leg lower, behave accordingly to here where bullish prices would be seen, and then continued bullishness for the Nasdaq. That's what ideally what I'd like to see. Again, I'm not calling the top yet. I'm not calling the top. I need more confirmation for that in order for me to really get on that side. And even then, it's not a top per se, because it can retrace quite a bit and then resume as bullish rally. It takes quite a bit for it to be an overall reversal and a top to be put in place relative to a higher time frame chart, like a daily chart, for example. Okay, so that's what I'm expecting. Movement down lower into here, watching it and observing how it behaves in here, and wanting to see the bullish trend continue. Again, this idea is negated if we trade through this area in here. Okay, so that is what I'm looking for. And lastly, dialing into our 15-minute chart, we see a more refined view of price action. So again, the emphasis on it moving lower is the objective for this week, and it's actually really not that much lower. Okay, it's this range in here. Ideally, well, depending on how you look at it, if it gaps down on the open into this area in here, that could be pretty significant as to much lower prices than I would want to see. So ideally, I don't want to see it gap on the open into lower prices in here. I'd like to see it just have more or less a regular opening and then move into this area here, behave accordingly, which bullishness would be favorable, and then move higher. Again, what negates that idea from even moving at all into this area in here is if we trade back through this stop run area in here with conviction, as in it moves aggressively away from this area in here. So I'm going to be watching how price opens this week to see if we gap up or if we gap down, because that could be indicative of where we go next. However, as it relates to the analysis, I am leaning more towards initial movement lower at the moment than I am higher prices. So that's what I'm going to be looking for going into next week, is to target 24,057 and potentially into this stop run area in here, which would be this level here until there. Again, this is the relative stop run area to 24,057. So with that being said, that is going to conclude our weekly analysis for October 12th, 2025. As always, take care and God bless.